Lecture 11 is all about integrated pest management. And the aim of this lecture is to provide an understanding of the hazards and controls involving food pests and to provide an understanding of integrated pest management. And learning outcomes by the end of this module, you will be able to say why staff training is important to recognise and respond to signs of pests, give reasons for the control of pests, state why using competent contractors are required for chemical control, and identify which is the preferred option for the control of pests. So food pests. The definition here, they are animals, insects or birds which live in or on humans' food and are noxious, destructive and troublesome. Now normally the three main categories of pests are birds, insects and rodents. So let's have a look at rodents. We've got brown rat, black rat and the house mouse. Insects, we've got flies, wasps, cockroaches, we've got oriental and German, soakids, stored product insects such as grain beetle, flower beetle, larder beetle, grain weevil, a mill moth, a flower moth, mites, Pharaoh's ants and silverfish. Also birds, dogs and cats. Bird are the primary problem here. Dogs and cats contain a lot of infection, obviously, on their body and their mouth parts, etc. So these must be kept away from a food premises and from kitchens. So reasons for control. Well, they cause disease, including food poisoning. They cause contamination with their body parts and drop-ins. They cause wastage, damage, lost custom, complaints, staff losses, reduced profit, and it's the law. Integrated pest management then is, or the definition here is, the cost-effective implementation of prevention and eradication strategies based on the biology of pests intended to assure a pest-free food operation. Environmental control, we can obviously deny access by good building design, maintenance, proofing and checking of deliveries. Denial of food and harbourage by good housekeeping practices, both internally and externally. Clean and tidy, clean as you go. Stock checks for correct storage, and the use of pest-proof containers. And very good staff training. So how do we eradicate pests? We use, if we can, the preferred option, which is physical control. Ultraviolet fly killers, they can be electric or sticky. Cockroach sticky traps, rodent traps, either live or dead, hormone traps, sticky fly papers, mist nets. The pests are actually caught dead or alive, so we know we've caught them. We know where they are. The other less preferred option is chemical control. We can use rodenticides in the form of solid blocks, paste, or bait and powders. Insecticides such as knockdown and residual dust, baits, gels and sprays. Fumigation, narcotizing. The problem with chemical control is there is the risk of contamination, especially if you're a small business. Perhaps you might not be COSH trained. That stands for the control of substances hazardous to health. That's health and safety. You might up ending or getting the chemical into the food supply. That could end up with a customer. The contamination as well could come from dead pests and pesticides. So let's have a look at rodents. There we go, the brown rat, which is Rattus norvegicus, the most common rat in the UK and probably the world. I suppose you can say there are two different types. There's the what I call the organic and the inorganic. The organic you'll see quite happily nesting in vegetation, in hedges and hedgerows, etc. Then you've got the inorganic that lives in sewers. And it's the sewer rat is the main problem with infection, because it's living with sewage, with feces. It contains all different types of diseases, infections, parasites, etc. And that's not to say that the organic rat that's happily living in a hedgerow is any less, well, it is less infected because it doesn't contain as many of the diseases that a sewer rat would, but it does contain disease, and obviously that needs to be kept away from the food premises. We got the black rat, Rattus rattus. Normally see that around about seashores and seaside resorts, near ships, etc. That's a rat smear on a wall, which is there, where a rat has walked along close to the wall, perhaps on the pipe, and brushed against the wall. That smear, it contains a lot of infection. It's because the rat has a heavy oil content in its skin on its fur, and it leaves that mark. Then you got the house mouse, Mus domesticus, the gnawing mouse. Again, mouse or rats can gnaw through electrical wires, cause fires. It can gnaw through pipework, water pipework, causing floods. It's an example of a gnawed plug. I don't know what happened to the rodent that gnawed. They'll probably end up gnawing through the wires and exploded. So with rodents, identification signs of infestation include things like droppings, bodies, sightings, smell or noise, holes and nests, food loss, gnawed food, gnawed packaging, structural damage, smear marks, fur and footprints, and tail marks. And again, your staff must have training to recognise the signs of pest infestation, because they are initially responsible for checking for signs of infestation and in my experience, the staff should go around at least once a week with a torch, looking under shelves and behind fridges and freezers, behind any equipment, behind sinks if possible, and in dry goods storage areas. Anywhere that's non-disturbed, really, move things around. If there's no signs of pest infestation, that goes into the diary. And that diary insert then entry is part of your HACCP. So rodents spread salmonella, E. coli, typhoid, typhus, clostridium, trichinosis, Trichinella spiralis, which is Weil's disease. Leptospirosis is Weil's disease, which is carried in rats' urine. Trichinosis is a parasite that is quite prevalent, or used to be quite prevalent in pork, and it can cause heart attacks in us if we eat undercooked pork that's has got trichinella in the meat. Transmission methods include food contaminated by urine or drop-ins, contact with urine, eating undercooked pork, parasites on rodents, and rat bites. So treatment, we could use rodenticides. You've got two types, chronic and acute. Chronic takes a long time to kill, comparatively long, and acute kills within hours. Again, big problem if you, well, with both of them really. With the acute poison, they might go off to die, but you don't know where they're going to die. They could be dying under the floorboards, behind shelves, and a couple of months down the road when you can smell rotted flesh, you know you've got a problem. And you've got to try to eradicate that smell by trying to remove the problem. The chronic one, again, it takes a longer time for the rat or rodent to die. And if the rat is pregnant at the time of taking the chronic poison, and it gives birth before it dies, it's possible that the poison within the rodenticide, by a process called DNA transfer, parts or particles of the poison will end up in the baby rat's DNA. They will be born with this slight mutation in their DNA, which means they won't be poisoned by the same poison if you use it again. You know, the mother rat has died but given birth before she's died, and these baby rats then are going to be like super rats that you can't kill. Another reason why we shouldn't be using chemicals. You can use contact rodenticides. You can use tracking powder, so you know where they're going, where they're nesting, and you can route them out that way. You can use traps, the spring-loaded traps, for example, and rodent sticky boards. Many of the traps these days are more environmentally friendly. In fact, there's several companies using traps that when a rodent goes into it, carbon dioxide gas is released and it suffocates the rat in situ, or the rodent in situ, and so it dies there, rather than it taking poison from the container and then going off and dying who knows where. Insects, we got cockroaches, spread infection. They got infection on their body, on their feet, in their mouth parts, and their drop-ins. Flies contain up to 120 different pathogens in their intestines. Fly maggots, fly pupae. There's a fire brat, Indian meal moth, a larder beetle, Australian spider beetle, book lice, Pharaoh's ant, wasp, silverfish, love wet conditions. And with insects, they spread disease such as salmonella, typhoid, shigella, E. coli, Clostridium, and other food poisoning and foodborne organisms. Transmission methods, regurgitation of stomach contents, lovely. Feces, bacteria, wow, that should be bacteria, my apologies, from feet and hairs. Pupal cases, eggs or larvae, dead bodies, body parts, and nymphal molts. Sounds a good title for a group. And prevention, good housekeeping practices, good proofing methods, check goods upon delivery, good maintenance, clean, tidy refuse areas, clean drains and gullies. Stored product insects, these are a large group of insects which attack foodstuffs, such as mites, moths, weevils, beetles, and their larvae. And they affect the following foodstuffs: cereals, beans, dried products, flour. Stored product insects. For example, flower moth larvae, grain weevil, rust red flower beetle. Signs of infestation include strands of webbing, holes in food, frass, trails in dust, bodies, and they vary with the type of insect. Frass, by the way, is the very small drop-ins that you'll get with stored product insects. Birds, another pest, for example, a feral pigeon, contains a lot of infection in its feathers, in its beak, in its drop-ins, on its feet, etc. And birds such as pigeons, starlings, sparrows. And methods of control, internal control, such as good design, good housekeeping, the use of repellents, proofing. External, using scaring devices, traps, shooting, narcotizing, and mist netting. Again, further details are available in the notes that accompany this course. Now, with a pest control contractor, it is somebody you really should employ as part of your HACCP system and part of integrated pest management. These are the experts. They will recognize the type of pests that are a problem. They must provide 24-hour cover, so you must insist that, or choose a company that does provide 24-hour cover. They must have trained and experienced staff. They must agree with you, or you agree with them, the frequency of visits, what methods and materials that they'll be using. And again, if you want to insist on more organic and environmentally friendly methods and materials, then do so. It's your business at the end of the day. They must belong to a professional body. They must provide a written report at the end of the inspection with recommendations, again, which you must adhere to. But management is always responsible. They're not absolved of responsibility, and that includes supervisors also. So although the pest control contractor do their bit, it's always up to the management to check that they've trained their staff to recognise pest infestation, make sure all the recommendations are carried out, and they then will initially employ the pest control contractor. So staff and management responsibility include they must be trained to recognise signs, report problems to the supervisor, complete a pest control book and diary, advise contractor if there is a problem, accompany contractor on the visit, report poor housekeeping to supervisor, record the bait box positions, respond to recommendations, and a nominated person to check the work has been done. So this is why you need to accompany the contractor. And management is always responsible for keeping premises pest-free. Supervisor responsibility. They must insist on ensuring pest control management, routinely inspect vulnerable areas, thorough checking of deliveries, train staff in identifying pest signs, notifying contractor if signs are noticed, ensuring contractor does not contaminate, ensuring cleaning after the area has been treated, to report defects, to accompany contractor, to remedy poor housekeeping, acting on recommendations, aware of bait box positions, and checked regularly. Photographs provided courtesy of Rent-A-Kill. These are fly screens, external fly screens. Could do with a bit of a clean, actually. You can have them externally or internally. They should be placed on any openable windows. We got an example there of a good fly screen and other pest protection device which automatically opens and closes as you walk through. A kick plate on the bottom of the door to stop any rodents from gnawing at the bottom of the door to gain access. And lastly, the key points of this section. Pests can spread diseases. Many prosecutions and closures result from pest problems. Staff training to recognise and respond to sign of pests is essential. Proofing and good housekeeping prevent many problems. Physical controls are preferred to chemical controls. Competent contractors are required for chemical control. Always monitor the pest control contractor.